The day dawned with a deceptive brilliance, a crisp golden light that promised a fairy tale beginning. Emily, in her ethereal white gown, stood before the mirror, a vision of bridal perfection. Her heart, a tumultuous sea of emotions, swelled with what she believed was pure, unadulterated joy. She was marrying Mark, the man she had loved for 7 years, her rock, her confidant, her future. The grand ballroom of the opulent hotel was transformed into a floral wonderland, every detail meticulously planned, every bloom a testament to their shared dream. Guests began to arrive, their laughter and chatter echoing softly, a symphony of anticipation. They were all there to witness love, to celebrate a union, but beneath the veneer of champagne toasts and heartfelt vows, a venomous secret coiled, ready to strike, to shatter the illusion of forever. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a meticulously orchestrated stage where love would be brutally murdered and a carefully crafted revenge would take its first, devastating breath. Emily's journey to this moment had been one of unwavering devotion. She met Mark in their final year of university, a chance encounter at a campus coffee shop that blossomed into a whirlwind romance. Mark, with his charismatic smile and ambitious drive, swept her off her feet. He was everything she had ever dreamed of, intelligent, funny, attentive, and seemingly utterly devoted to her. Their relationship was the envy of their friends. They built a life together, moving into a charming apartment, sharing dreams of a future filled with children, travel, and quiet evenings by the fire. Emily poured her entire being into their relationship, nurturing it with a fierce loyalty and an open heart. She saw Mark not just as a partner, but as an extension of herself, her other half. Every decision, every plan, every aspiration was intertwined with him. She trusted him implicitly, believed in him unconditionally. That trust, so pure and absolute, would become the very foundation upon which her world would violently crumble. She remembered countless nights, nestled in his arms, discussing their future, the names of their hypothetical children, the color scheme of their dream home. Each shared whisper, each tender embrace was a brick in the wall of their seemingly impenetrable fortress of love. The idea that any of it could be a lie, a carefully constructed facade, was an impossibility too cruel to even contemplate. Mark, on the other hand, was a complex tapestry of charm and ambition, interwoven with a thread of profound weakness. He thrived on external validation, on being admired and desired. While he genuinely loved Emily in his own way, a comfortable, reassuring love, it was perhaps not the all-consuming passion she felt. He enjoyed the stability she brought, the unquestioning support, the image of the perfect couple they projected to the world. But there was an insatiable part of him, a void that craved novelty, excitement, and the thrill of the chase. He was a man who enjoyed feeling wanted, perpetually. His career in a high-pressure marketing firm brought him into contact with a myriad of people, always new faces, new opportunities to impress, to captivate. He saw himself as a man who deserved to have it all, and in his self-serving worldview, having it all sometimes meant pushing the boundaries, venturing into forbidden territories. He was a master of compartmentalization, able to switch between the doting fiancé and the adventurous professional without a flicker of remorse, at least not initially. He justified his actions with a familiar cocktail of excuses: stress, a momentary lapse, a need for something different, a belief that it wouldn't hurt anyone if no one ever found out. Then there was Sarah, who would become the catalyst, the living embodiment of the secret, and ultimately the unwitting instrument of Emily's retribution. Sarah worked in the same building as Mark, in a different department. She was vibrant, edgy, with an alluring confidence that stood in stark contrast to Emily's more serene demeanor. She was drawn to Mark's charm, his attention, the way he made her feel seen and desired. She knew he was engaged. He hadn't exactly hidden the ring, though he downplayed its significance. At first, it was casual flirtation, harmless banter over coffee breaks. But Mark, ever the pursuer, escalated it. He initiated late-night messages, then after-work drinks that stretched into stolen hours. Sarah, perhaps feeling a loneliness she hadn't acknowledged, or flattered by the attention of a seemingly successful and attractive man, allowed herself to be drawn in. She knew it was wrong, felt the pangs of guilt, but the allure of the forbidden, the intensity of their clandestine encounters, became an addiction. She told herself it was just a phase, that he would never leave Emily, that it was merely an escape for both of them. She built her own justifications, her own fragile house of cards, believing that what happened in secret stayed in secret, that the emotional collateral damage was contained. She convinced herself she was not the villain, merely a participant in a game someone else had started. The genesis of the affair was insidious, a slow, almost imperceptible erosion of boundaries. It began with shared work projects, long hours spent together in the office, ostensibly collaborating. Mark would linger by Sarah's desk, offering a sympathetic ear, a knowing glance, a compliment that felt a little too personal. He'd complain about the pressures of his upcoming wedding, subtly painting Emily as demanding or overly emotional, carefully chipping away at her image in Sarah's mind. He made Sarah feel special, unique, unlike anyone he had ever met. He made her laugh, truly laugh, in a way she hadn't in years. He'd suggest de-stressing over a drink, just colleagues, no big deal. One drink led to another, then a late dinner, then a stolen kiss in a dimly lit bar, the electric charge undeniable. The first time Sarah recoiled, guilt searing through her. But Mark was persistent, persuasive, whispering assurances that it meant nothing, that it was just a moment, a fleeting escape from the mundane. He told her Emily wouldn't understand his work pressures, his creative needs, his deep anxieties. Sarah, flattered by his vulnerability, convinced herself she was providing him with something Emily couldn't. The affair, once a forbidden fantasy, solidified into a tangible, dangerous reality. It became their secret world, a place where they could shed their responsibilities and indulge in a fleeting, intoxicating passion. The affair's progression was a masterclass in deception. Mark became a virtuoso of lies, juggling his two lives with practiced ease. He developed a vast repertoire of excuses: late nights at the office, client dinners, guys' nights out, sudden out-of-town conferences. Emily, trusting and naive, believed him. She was accustomed to his demanding career, often packed him snacks for his long nights, and felt proud of his dedication. Meanwhile, Mark and Sarah were exploring a clandestine world of their own. They met in anonymous hotels, in quiet restaurants miles from their usual haunts, in Sarah's apartment when her roommates were away. Each stolen moment was fraught with a thrilling tension, a heightened sense of urgency that made their encounters feel more potent, more real than the steady, comforting rhythm of Mark's life with Emily. Sarah found herself increasingly entangled, her initial guilt giving way to a desperate yearning for Mark's attention, his touch, his validation. She knew she was living a lie, but the thought of ending it, of returning to her lonely reality, was unbearable. Mark, for his part, enjoyed the duality, the safety and comfort of Emily, the passion and excitement of Sarah. He felt powerful, desired, a man who could command two women's affections. He genuinely believed he could keep it all separate, that no one would ever be hurt. His conscience, a small, insistent voice at first, grew quieter with each successful deception, drowned out by the thrill of the chase and the gratification of his desires. But secrets, like shadows, always find a way to lengthen and distort. Emily, though deeply trusting, began to notice the subtle shifts, the tiny cracks in the perfect facade. Mark's phone was suddenly always face down, locked, and never left unattended. His explanations for his late nights became increasingly vague, sometimes contradictory. There was a new scent on his clothes, not perfume, but a different kind of freshness, a subtle floral note that wasn't hers. He became more irritable, more distant, quick to snap when questioned, then overly affectionate to compensate. Her intuition, a quiet whisper at first, grew into a persistent hum of unease. She dismissed it as pre-wedding jitters, her own insecurity, the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. She confided in her best friend, Lisa, who advised her not to jump to conclusions, to focus on the joy of her impending marriage. Emily wanted to believe it, desperately. She pushed down the gnawing suspicion, forcing herself to focus on dress fittings, guest lists, and cake tastings, but the seeds of doubt, once planted, began to sprout, slowly, inexorably, in the fertile ground of her subconscious. She found a receipt for a lavish dinner at a restaurant she'd never been to, dated a night Mark claimed to be at a guy's poker game. He dismissed it as a client dinner he forgot to mention, a casual lie that felt too rehearsed. The pieces weren't fitting, and the puzzle was beginning to reveal a picture she didn't want to see. The discovery was not a sudden, dramatic revelation, but a slow, agonizing process of piecing together fragments of truth until the full, horrifying mosaic emerged. Emily had always been meticulous, organized. One evening, searching for a misplaced document, she stumbled upon an old burner phone, hidden deep in the back of Mark's desk drawer, nestled beneath a pile of old financial statements. It was an old model, not his usual smartphone, and her heart immediately sank. Curiosity, cold and unwelcome, compelled her to turn it on. It was unlocked. The messages, hundreds of them, laid bare the ugly truth. Pet names, intimate details, plans for secret rendezvous, declarations of longing, all exchanged with a woman whose name, Sarah, was repeated again and again. Each word was a dagger, twisting deeper into her heart, shredding her trust, her dignity, her entire perception of reality. Her world didn't just crack. It shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, that she felt physically ill. The wedding was just weeks away. The dress, the venue, the vows, all of it felt like a grotesque mockery. The initial shock gave way to a searing, incandescent rage. But beneath the anger a steely resolve began to form. Emily was not a woman to crumble and cry, not indefinitely. She was a woman who, when pushed to her absolute limit, would fight back. She reread every message, every damning word, her mind racing, calculating. She saw not just the betrayal, but the careful, calculated deception, the audacity of Mark's double life. And then, a thought, cold and precise as a surgeon's scalpel, entered her mind. Revenge. Not petty, impulsive revenge, but something grander, more impactful. A public unmasking that would leave an indelible mark. She wouldn't just cancel the wedding. She would turn it into the stage for her retribution. She would expose Mark and Sarah in the most public, most humiliating way possible. The idea was chilling, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. It was the only way she could imagine reclaiming a semblance of control, of dignity, from the ashes of her shattered dreams. Her plan began to take shape, intricate and daring. She needed to confirm Sarah's identity to understand the extent of their relationship. She used the information from the burner phone, cross-referencing names, places and times. She discovered Sarah's social media profiles, her workplace. Emily was careful, methodical, leaving no digital trace. She learned about Sarah's life, her aspirations, her vulnerabilities. Then came the most audacious part of her scheme. She needed to involve Sarah. Not as an accomplice, but as an unwitting participant in her own public downfall. Emily devised a cunning strategy. She anonymously sent Sarah a carefully crafted email, implying that Mark was playing them both, that he was about to ditch Sarah for Emily, hinting that there was a final, secret message Mark had left for Sarah that she needed to find. She created just enough ambiguity, just enough doubt, to plant a seed of desperate curiosity in Sarah's mind. The email also accidentally included a subtle clue about the wedding venue and time, framed as an innocuous detail. Emily knew Sarah's type from her social media: impulsive, a little dramatic, prone to feeling wronged. She gambled on Sarah's ego, on her desire to not be made a fool of, on her need for a final confrontation. The goal wasn't just to expose Mark, but to expose Sarah alongside him, to ensure that the mistress who had so willingly participated in her fiancé's betrayal would also face the public consequences. Emily's revenge was not just about pain. It was about justice delivered with a brutal theatrical flourish. The wedding day dawned, bright and deceptively cheerful. Emily moved through the motions like a ghost, a radiant, beautiful ghost. She smiled, she laughed, she hugged her bridesmaids, her family, all the while a storm raged within her. Every congratulations felt like a fresh wound, every loving glance from her parents a reminder of the elaborate charade she was about to enact. She looked at Mark across the crowded ballroom, his face alight with a joy that she now knew was a performance, a grand deception. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, confident, oblivious. Her heart, once broken, was now encased in ice, a fortress of cold determination. She felt a strange detachment, as if she were watching a play unfold, a masterpiece of tragedy and vengeance. Her body was present, but her mind was miles away, rehearsing the imminent explosion, anticipating the delicious chaos. Sarah, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of internal conflict. Emily's anonymous email had hit its mark. The ambiguous message, the hint of a final hidden communication from Mark, had eaten away at her. She had tried to reach Mark, but he was unreachable, absorbed in his wedding day preparations, his phone off. The fear of being discarded, of being merely a fleeting diversion, clawed at her. She felt used, manipulated. A desperate need for closure, for an explanation, for a final confrontation consumed her. She told herself she just needed to see him, to understand. She rationalized her decision to come to the wedding, not to cause a scene, but to discreetly pull him aside, to get her answers. But deep down, a more volatile emotion simmered, the anger of a woman scorned, a desire to not be the only one left in the dark, the only one whose heart was about to be broken. She dressed carefully, not in flashy attire, but in a simple, elegant dress that allowed her to blend in, yet still look composed. She arrived at the venue, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, her mind a maelstrom of fear, anger, and a twisted sense of anticipation. The ceremony began. The music swelled, a majestic anthem of love. Emily walked down the aisle, her father's arm a steadying presence. Her eyes met Mark's, and for a fleeting moment, a sliver of her old self, the Emily who loved him, flickered, but it was quickly extinguished, replaced by the hardened resolve of the woman who would ensure his downfall. She stood beside him, her hand in his touch feeling alien, cold. The officiant began the sacred vows, words meant to bind two souls for eternity. Emily repeated her vows, each word a bitter lie, a silent promise of destruction. Mark, oblivious, his eyes shining with what looked like genuine emotion, spoke his vows, his voice clear and strong, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part. The irony was a suffocating weight. It was precisely at that moment, just as the officiant asked, "If anyone here knows any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now, or forever hold your peace," that the air crackled. A collective intake of breath swept through the room as a figure emerged from the back, slowly, deliberately, walking down the aisle. It was Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and defiance. The whispers began, a low murmur that quickly escalated into a cacophony of confused murmurs. Emily, standing at the altar, felt a tremor of satisfaction. Her plan was unfolding. Mark, turning to see the commotion, his eyes widened in horror, a slow dawning of comprehension washing over his face. His carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Sarah, her voice trembling but gaining strength with each step, reached the altar, standing directly in front of Mark and Emily. The music had stopped. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by Sarah's ragged breathing and the frantic pounding of Emily's heart. "I know a reason," Sarah declared, her voice ringing out clear and sharp, slicing through the stunned silence. "I know a very good reason why this wedding should not proceed." She paused, her eyes locking onto Mark's, a raw accusation in their depths. Mark was speechless, his face drained of color, his jaw slack. "Mark," Sarah continued, her voice now laced with a bitter edge, "you are a liar, you are a cheat, and you are a coward." She turned her gaze to the bewildered guests, then finally to Emily, a flicker of something akin to pity in her eyes, mixed with her own pain. "This man," she gestured wildly at Mark, "has been having an affair with me for the past year. He told me he loved me. He told me he was going to leave her. He promised me a future." A gasp rippled through the stunned audience. Emily remained impassive, a statue of serene vengeance. Her gaze was fixed on Mark, watching every nuance of his horrified reaction. His face was a canvas of disbelief, shame, and utter panic. He stammered, "Sarah, what are you doing? This isn't the time." His voice was a pathetic whisper, devoid of its usual charm. But Sarah was beyond reasoning. The dam had broken. The carefully contained torrent of her own pain, anger, and humiliation was now unleashed. "The time?" she scoffed, a harsh, humorless sound. "There is no other time, Mark. You were going to marry her. Marry her knowing you were sleeping with me last week. You were going to let me walk away believing you were just some cruel man who played with my heart, while you went on to your perfect life, your perfect wedding." She pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking, and held it up. "I have proof, hundreds of messages, pictures, declarations of love. He told me he was only with her out of obligation, that she was clingy, that he was trapped." A collective gasp echoed through the ballroom. Guests began to whisper furiously, their shock turning into outrage. Emily's parents, initially frozen in disbelief, began to stir, their faces etched with a mixture of confusion and profound hurt. Mark's parents were aghast, his mother clutching his father's arm, her eyes wide with shame. Mark finally found his voice, a desperate plea. "Sarah, please, let's talk about this privately. You're ruining everything." "You ruined everything, Mark," Sarah retorted, her voice rising to a crescendo. "You ruined my life, my reputation, my sense of self-worth, and you were about to ruin hers." She pointed at Emily, her finger shaking. "She deserves to know the kind of snake she was about to marry." Emily finally spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, cutting through the rising din like a razor. "Thank you, Sarah," she said, her eyes still fixed on Mark, "but I already knew." The words hung in the air, a second, even more shocking revelation. If the first had been a thunderclap, this was the earthquake. Sarah froze, her mouth agape. Mark's eyes snapped to Emily, a new layer of terror entering his gaze. The guests were utterly stunned, their murmurs ceasing entirely. Emily's composure, her quiet declaration, was more chilling than Sarah's outburst. "I found out weeks ago," Emily continued, her voice gaining a quiet power. "Every lie, every secret meeting, every promise you made to her, Mark, I knew it all." She turned to the officiant, a polite, almost serene smile on her face. "I believe this ceremony is officially off." Then she turned back to Mark, her eyes burning with a cold fire. "And as for you, Mark, this isn't just the end of our wedding, this is the end of everything. You chose to betray me, to humiliate me, to shatter my trust. And now you will face the consequences, publicly and unequivocally." With that, Emily calmly removed her engagement ring, the glittering diamond suddenly seeming like a grotesque mockery. She held it out to Mark, her hand steady. "This is yours," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "Keep it. Perhaps it will serve as a reminder of what you lost, and why." She dropped the ring into his outstretched, trembling hand, then turned gracefully and walked away from the altar, leaving a stunned Mark, a bewildered Sarah, and a ballroom full of utterly bewildered and horrified guests in her wake. The music did not play, the applause did not come, only a profound, echoing silence, broken by the occasional sob from a shocked relative. The immediate aftermath was a maelstrom of chaos. Emily's parents, devastated and furious, rushed to her side, ushering her out of the ballroom. Mark's parents, their faces crimson with shame, began to confront him, their hushed, angry voices rising above the general din. Guests, unsure whether to stay or leave, milled around, whispering furiously, their initial shock giving way to open condemnation. Sarah, still standing by the altar, looked utterly lost, her moment of triumph instantly overshadowed by Emily's calculated reveal. She had played her part, but Emily had orchestrated the entire symphony of destruction. Mark, left alone at the altar, looked utterly pathetic, a man stripped bare, his carefully constructed image shattered beyond repair. His face was a mask of despair, his eyes darting around the room, meeting only stares of disgust and pity. The dream wedding had become a nightmare, a public spectacle of betrayal and revenge. The caterers, the band, the photographers, all frozen in their positions, witnesses to a drama far more compelling than any staged performance. The air was thick with tension, with the stench of shattered dreams and exposed lies. Emily, escorted by her parents and her best friend Lisa, was whisked away from the venue. She didn't cry, not then. The tears would come later in the quiet solitude of her apartment. But at that moment she felt a strange sense of liberation, a powerful surge of adrenaline. The weight of the secret, the burden of the lie, had been lifted. Her revenge had been executed flawlessly. She had not only exposed Mark, but she had done so with dignity, with a chilling composure that spoke volumes. The phone began to ring incessantly, messages flooding in from concerned friends, from furious relatives. Emily instructed Lisa to handle it, to spread the truth, to ensure that the narrative was clear. Mark was the villain. She was the wronged woman who had taken control of her own destiny. She knew the gossip would spread like wildfire, that their names would be on everyone's lips for weeks, perhaps months. But she also knew that the truth, ugly as it was now out. The fallout was swift and brutal. The wedding was, of course, annulled. The lavish honeymoon to the Maldives cancelled. The gifts returned. Mark was summarily fired from his job. His company, a reputable marketing firm, could not afford the public relations nightmare of an executive involved in such a scandalous affair, particularly one exposed in such a dramatic fashion. His professional reputation, once stellar, was in tatters. Doors that had once been wide open to him now slammed shut. His friends, initially sympathetic, slowly distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the scandal, or perhaps sensing the deeply flawed character he had revealed. His parents were heartbroken, struggling to reconcile the charming son they thought they knew with the deceitful man exposed at the altar. They tried to support him, but even their love was strained by the profound shame he had brought upon their family. Mark retreated into himself, a shell of his former confident self, consumed by regret and self-pity. He tried to reach out to Emily, pleading for forgiveness, for understanding, but she refused to engage, her resolve unshakable. Sarah's fate was equally grim. Her role in the affair, though arguably manipulated by Emily, was not forgotten. She became the mistress, a scarlet letter branded upon her. She faced immediate backlash at work, whispers and cold stares following her everywhere. Her professional life became untenable, forcing her to resign and seek employment in a different city, a desperate attempt to escape the shadow of the scandal. Her social life imploded. Friends, disgusted by her actions, cut ties. The public humiliation was immense, a constant reminder of her involvement in the affair. She, too, tried to contact Emily, seeking some form of apology, some explanation, some understanding. But Emily had no words for her, only a cold silence. Sarah was left to grapple with her own guilt, her own shame, and the crushing weight of public judgment. She had wanted to expose Mark, but in doing so, she had also exposed herself, becoming a casualty in a war she hadn't fully understood she was fighting. For Emily, the immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of emotional exhaustion and a strange, quiet sense of triumph. The wife's revenge was not a fleeting act of anger, but a profound and ongoing process of reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her future. The wedding day reveal was merely the opening salvo. Her true revenge lay in her ability to heal, to rebuild, and to thrive in the face of such devastating betrayal. She allowed herself to grieve, to feel the pain of the lost future, the shattered trust, the deep emotional wound, but she refused to be defined by it. She leaned on her family and friends, particularly Lisa, who was an unwavering pillar of support. She began therapy, working through the trauma, understanding the dynamics of betrayal, and slowly, painstakingly rebuilding her self-worth. Her revenge wasn't just about Mark's public downfall, it was about her own ascent. She decided to use her experience as a catalyst for change, not just in her own life, but potentially in the lives of others. She started a blog, initially anonymously, sharing her story, her journey through betrayal and healing. She wrote with raw honesty, detailing the insidious nature of infidelity, the psychological toll it takes, and the strength required to navigate its aftermath. The blog quickly gained a following, resonating with countless women who had experienced similar betrayals. Her words were powerful, empathetic, and empowering. She became a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for those struggling in the shadows of infidelity. This was her true revenge, transforming her pain into purpose, her suffering into strength. Emily eventually revealed her identity as the blogger, a move that garnered even more attention and respect. She was invited to speak at women's empowerment events, sharing her story, advocating for self-worth, and encouraging others to find their own paths to healing and resilience. She became an author, publishing a best-selling memoir, detailing her journey from heartbroken fiancé to empowered survivor. The book became a sensation, lauded for its honesty, its courage, and its profound message of hope. She started a foundation dedicated to supporting women through marital crisis and infidelity, providing resources, counseling, and a safe community for healing. Her life, once narrowly defined by her relationship with Mark, expanded exponentially, filled with meaning, purpose, and a profound sense of self-discovery. She traveled. She learned new skills. She invested in her own happiness, building a life that was richer, more fulfilling, and entirely her own, free from the shadow of betrayal. Mark's consequences, on the other hand, were long-lasting and debilitating. The public humiliation, the loss of his career, the estrangement from many of his friends and even some family members left him a broken man. He struggled to find new employment, his past scandal preceding him. He spiraled into depression, self-medicating with alcohol. He lost the charming confidence that had once defined him, replaced by a perpetual air of shame and regret. He tried to rebuild his life, but the foundation had been irrevocably shattered. He would occasionally see glimpses of Emily's success, her growing public profile, her radiant confidence, and a bitter cocktail of regret and envy would churn within him. He was forced to confront the true cost of his actions, not just the loss of Emily, but the loss of his own integrity, his own future. He learned too late that the thrill of the chase, the fleeting gratification of infidelity, was a devastatingly poor exchange for the stability, trust, and genuine love he had so carelessly discarded. His life became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the destructive power of deceit. He never truly recovered, living a life marked by missed opportunities and the pervasive shadow of his past mistakes. He became a recluse, his once vibrant social life a distant memory. He occasionally wondered if he had ever truly loved Emily, or if he had merely loved the idea of her, the comfort she provided. The answer, when it came, was a painful realization. He had loved her, but not enough to be faithful, not enough to be truly worthy of her. Sarah, too, faced a difficult road. The public shaming, though perhaps less widespread than Mark's, was deeply personal and devastating. She moved to a new city, started fresh, but the experience left an indelible scar. She struggled with trust, with relationships, always fearing judgment, always carrying the weight of her past. She eventually sought therapy, acknowledging her role in the affair, her own vulnerabilities and poor choices. It was a long, arduous journey of self-reflection and redemption. She learned to forgive herself, to understand the complexities of her own motivations, and to make amends, not to Emily or Mark, but to herself, by living a life of integrity and honesty. She eventually found love again, a quiet, steady love built on transparency and mutual respect. She never forgot the wedding day, the moment her life irrevocably changed, but she learned to integrate it into her story, not as a source of perpetual shame, but as a painful lesson that ultimately led to profound personal growth. She learned that true love couldn't be built on secrets and lies, and that fleeting passion could never compensate for lasting trust and respect. The story of Emily, Mark, and Sarah became a modern-day parable, a dramatic illustration of the devastating consequences of infidelity and the powerful resilience of the human spirit. It was a testament to the fact that betrayal, while deeply wounding, does not have to be the end. For Emily, it was the beginning of a new, more authentic life, a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Her revenge wasn't just about making Mark pay. It was about making herself whole again, about transforming her pain into a profound source of strength and inspiration. She emerged from the ashes not bitter or broken, but stronger, wiser, and more compassionate, a true survivor who had found her voice and her purpose in the crucible of betrayal. Her story resonated deeply with millions. The dramatic wedding day reveal was just the turning point, the spectacular ignition of a much longer, more profound journey. Emily understood that true revenge wasn't about inflicting pain, but about reclaiming power. It was about showing the world, and more importantly herself, that she was not a victim, but a survivor, a woman capable of extraordinary strength and resilience. She often reflected on the nature of love, trust, and forgiveness. She realized that while she could never truly forgive Mark for the betrayal, she could forgive herself for having loved him, for having been naive, for having trusted too deeply. That self-forgiveness was the key to her healing, the ultimate victory in her long, arduous journey. Her life became a testament to the idea that even in the darkest moments of betrayal, there is always a path forward, a chance to rebuild, to redefine, and to emerge stronger than before. The wedding that never was became the day her true life began, a life of purpose, passion, and unwavering self-respect. If you found yourself captivated by Emily's story of betrayal, revenge, and ultimate triumph, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more compelling narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives on these intense dramas of infidelity and the complex journeys of those who navigate them.